Hi everyone, welcome to a special edition of We Talk News. I'm PCM Founder Jimmy Young. It's been a historic week in the fight for federal reform of cannabis. Now, unless you were totally out of your mind stoned this week, you must have heard that the DEA has agreed with the Health and Human Services recommendation to move cannabis off Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. Now, no matter what happens next, moving it out of Schedule 1 is huge. Basically, it is an admission by the feds that this plant does have medicinal effects, and it is not as dangerous as the government has told the public for over 50 years. The biggest impact, however, will be for businesses in cannabis who have had to deal with the dreaded 280E tax code. Every other business in America has the right to write off regular business expenses, but cannabis, well, they were singled out because it was still illegal at the federal level. That has not changed. It is also still a criminal offense to carry it in some states, so it is not decriminalized either. So what has changed? Well, we will talk with our friend in Washington, D.C., the Director of Government Relations for NORML, Morgan Fox. Plus, you will also hear from our correspondents from coast to coast about feedback from the industry in their own states. But first, we want to share a few excerpts from interviews from over the past year with two people from the industry with tremendous insight on what this suggested move to Schedule 3 will do for the industry. One is Shaleen, a former commissioner of the Cannabis Control Commission here in Massachusetts, and the other is Chris Hudalla, the Chief Science Officer for Pro Verde Labs, also here in New England. Chris and I talked about the move to Schedule 3 right after the Health and Human Services came out with their recommendations last summer. His thoughts were not positive.
I think it's terrifying. As a Schedule 1 drug, there's no federal pathway forward for marijuana. And they have chosen at the federal level to allow the states to operate under a state-by-state regulated program. It's still federally illegal. As a Schedule 3 drug, there is a federal regulated pathway available, which I would assume everybody would have to comply with. Complying with a Schedule 3 drug is very difficult, and it opens the doors primarily to small pharmaceutical companies. It would most likely shut down the ability to home grow. The existing market would change dramatically as we see it today. It would require a prescription to get that drug, that Schedule 3 drug. And so the uncertainty with a Schedule 3 drug, for me, is very concerning for this industry. It should be descheduled, maybe treated more like alcohol.
Schedule 3 turns cannabis into more of a drug than a natural plant that can be grown for home. It defeats the purpose that God put it on this earth for.
It's very confusing what that means, because Schedule 3 would put everything in the regulatory body in the hands of the FDA. The FDA does not deal with botanical substances. They deal with pure compounds, which cannabis is not for the most part. Most people are consuming cannabis as a plant, as an extract, as a formulated product, which is a very complex mixture, which would be very difficult to regulate as a Schedule 3 drug. As a Schedule 3 drug, that would most likely dictate the isolation of pure cannabinoids and reformulation. So you would have a THC capsule that was 10 milligrams. The entourage effect is going to be gone. There's no room for entourage effect in Schedule 3 drugs. So it's very frightening.
So for those who aren't sure what the entourage effect is, let me try to explain it. This plant is very complicated when you break it down into its chemical components. There are hundreds of cannabinoids in the plant, with the two most common and recognized, THC, the intoxicating cannabinoid, and CBD, an anti-inflammatory cannabinoid. But when you look at this chart, you will see other elements in the plant like terpenes and flavonoids that all impact the effect this plant has on the human endocannabinoid system that is in every mammal in the world. Add in the fact that everyone's metabolism is different, and you can see why the science and research community is excited about the chance to study it more now that it has been targeted for Schedule 3. And that includes codeine, Tylenol, anabolic steroids, and ketamine. At the High Lifestyle event this past fall in Boxborough, Shaleen was the keynote speaker.
And so this was largely described as a step in the right direction, but not enough, is how I would characterize it. It's more like a step in a very bizarre direction that fully contradicts the way that we use and sell marijuana. Why is that potentially a problem? Well, this is a completely unprecedented situation. So we have never before had a Schedule III substance that didn't first go through FDA approval and trials. We have never had an FDA-approved Schedule III substance that is used as an intoxicant and a medicine at the same time. And we have never had a federally legal path for a business. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, imagine that we were having this event for ketamine use or steroid use. What do we think the federal government would do? We have absolutely no idea, right? And that is the problem. The other reason I think that perhaps this has gone unexamined is actually two reasons. So one is people ask, where did this come from? Did maybe Big Pharma push it? Did someone else push it? It's my opinion that this wasn't pushed by anyone in particular, but it's a political, half-cocked, unexamined idea that looks like it might be good, that it might placate and pacify the cannabis community, might get some votes right before an election, but the consequences of it to all of us have not been looked at. The other reason, and I don't want to discount this at all, is that it comes with a massive, massive tax break for marijuana businesses because of a specific law called 280E that would be reversed. It's actually going to keep small businesses, many of them, from going out of business because their tax rate would become better. Large corporations will also get a massive tax break. We don't know what they'll do with those funds, but I think that's the other reason why perhaps this has been applauded and not looked at in terms of what the consequences might be.
We will discuss those consequences and get industry reaction from coast to coast on tomorrow's Weed Talk News special. For now, I'm Jimmy Young for Pro Cannabis Media.